Good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon. How are you doing today? I should say good morning or good evening, depending on where you are right now. But in Sherwood Park, Alberta, it is sunny and just beautiful out there. And our special guest today is joining us from the beautiful British Columbia, east coast of Canada here. And so I'm going to introduce him in just a moment here. But welcome into another episode of Conversations with Dune and Friends. Today we have Mr. David Gouthro joining us. Let me do a quick introduction before we invite him to join us here on screen. And for the viewers out there, if you can hear me, if you can give me a quick confirmation, that would be great. And I tested it before, so it should work, but let me know if you can't hear me. David, I assume you can hear me in the green room there, my friend? Wonderful. So David Gouthro, a seasoned, but not too spicy, speaker with over 40 years of experience. David is a sought-after consultant who is best known for his creative presentations, playful demeanor, and relentless focus on delivering value to his clients, colleagues, and community. David's experience comes from working with clients in 4 continents, in organizations that range from mining to energy, healthcare, and financial services, as well as high tech and biotech and government and not-for-profit sector. As the father of a precocious 20-year-old daughter, Anna, he has been forced to embrace the quality of humility, patience, good humor, and acceptance of his own potential inadequacies. The main focus of his current business involves working with individuals and groups who have no one else to point to as excuses for their own inaction. This has led him to spend the majority of his time in helping executive teams and boards make the tough decisions that are required to grow their businesses in a complex and unpredictable economic environment. However, his deepest personal passion is to really help people discover the courage that he believes they all possesses, and then inspire them to act upon it. With that brief introduction, folks, please help me in welcoming a friend all the way from British Columbia, Mr. David Gouthro. David, thank you for joining us today, my friend. How are you doing today as I sort of drag on my words there to wait for you to come on screen?
Well, I had to do a little bit of a head shake when you said that I was in BC on the east coast of Canada, and I thought, wait a minute, what happened overnight?
Oh, you know what? I got myself twisted there. I got all the other words correct in your intro, except I mixed up the east and west, and that's the typical guy thing, isn't it? Directions and all that.
That's a few thousand miles between friends.
Exactly. East and west, we're all one country here, my friend. I hope that others also spotted that, but thank you. So you were listening in the green room. You were listening.
Very carefully, very carefully.
Okay. Well, thank you, David, for joining us. Before we get into sharing a lot of different aspects, obviously we're going to share about leadership, we're going to share about learning and the importance of that and all the lessons around there, and then life in general, the areas, again, likely related to learning and leadership. So David, tell us a bit more, just fill in the blanks a little bit of your background beyond the bio there, my friend. Tell us more. Tell us more. We want to know more.
Okay. Well, grew up in Ontario in 1995, moved out west to get a life. My academic background actually has pretty much nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. I have a Bachelor of Science in Earth Science from the University of Waterloo. Let's see. How did I get here? I have been working for Apple Canada from 1981 to 1987.
Apple
program,
the Apple company, like the Apple company, yeah.
The Apple.
Oh, well, I'm a little awestruck. So that's cool. Wonderful.
Yeah, no, I was working for their main office in Canada, in Toronto. Excuse me. And Apple had a program where after you were there for 5 years, you were entitled to a 6-week sabbatical in addition to your vacation. So I took mine at a leadership development site down in New Mexico and had quite a wonderful time down there. And when I came back, I thought, you know what? I've had a number of people told me that they didn't think I could go out on my own, and because I didn't have what it took to be an entrepreneur. So, in my very immature state, I said okay, and I resigned. And so, after 6 years of Apple, I started my own business, mostly doing training and consulting and things like that. And then I remember one summer I'd rented a cottage in between a couple of friends of mine who both worked at Apple. One was the president, another the chief financial officer. And I was having a lot of accidents. I kept slipping on things and I couldn't figure out why. And it turns out I was just kind of always working. It's too easy to do nothing but work in
Uh-huh.
so I decided I better leave while I'm still alive. And just because I was always paying attention to work and not to what was going on around me. So packed up, moved out west in 1995, and there's been no looking back. Let's see. When I landed, I met the person who became my wife. We bought a house, got a dog, got married, adopted our daughters and newborn. So life really began. It took a long time to get started, but it seemed to start out here in Vancouver. Any other questions? I'm happy to respond to.
There you go. You're on the hot seat, in the hot seat today, my friend. So there will be lots of questions from not only myself, but hopefully from our viewers out there who, when you're watching, feel free to comment and ask David questions along the way, and we can interact and just all be friends on this hour of friendliness. Does that sound cool? All right. So do you remember how we met, David? You lived in BC. I live in Alberta. How did we ever meet?
Well, the first time when we met, and I actually remembered because I have a tendency to forget fairly easily. I usually have to be embarrassed 3 times before it finally sticks. But I'm pretty sure that you were back with the Edmonton chapter of CAPS, and we were in Toronto for a leadership for CAPS leadership.
Yeah.
Remember, that was the first time that I really chatted with you and really started to appreciate who you were. And I'm not sure how many years ago that was, but it must have been, I bet it was maybe 2000, somewhere between 2009, 2011, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. Probably 2010 or 11, yeah.
Yeah, I remember sitting beside you.
Yeah.
There you were.
There you go. There we were in Toronto doing the CAPS Leadership Summit thing, and it was cool. And then, of course, we've been to all the conventions since then, and the CAPS convention. But tell us, David. We're going to start from present day, and we're going to actually go back in time machine kind of a thing. You can be the Michael J. Fox, and I can be, I don't know if I want to be that doc guy, but anyway, you can be Michael J. Fox. And so on the time machine, on the present day, tell us what you're doing with COVID being in the background there in the forefront these days.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, a lot of the work that I do with my clients is in the context of change. And this has been a fairly dramatic change that for me, for the last 40 years, up until a few months ago, all of my work was involving face-to-face work with clients. So, speaking, facilitating, planning, training, things like that. And so 40 years, it's like, oops, got to make a bit of a change.
Wow.
So that was fairly dramatic. And fortunately, I have some really good clients who don't really care about things I've never done before because we're all kind of like this interview together. So I've been doing some online facilitation. A lot of it actually has been keeping some of my friends and colleagues back in Ontario together. Don's from the University of Waterloo, some former employees from Apple, just having Zoom calls just to connect and have that human connection and kind of take us temporarily out of the chaos and the maelstrom that we're in the midst of. Just to remember, there's better times in life and things like that. So in addition to that, I've been I hosted my first 6.5-hour planning session on Zoom.
6.5 hours. That's like the whole strategic planning retreat all in. Is it one session?
It was one session.
Wow,
and
that was grueling.
Client really wanted it, and it's people say that if it's online they shouldn't pay you as much, but it probably takes 3 times more time to design something that's online because you don't have as much of an ability to pivot on the spot and improvise. So that was kind of cool, and I've worked with them subsequently once with a group of Dune, I've lost you, with 260 employees. Really great client, but that was for an hour and a half, 268 people, and keeping people engaged.
Wow.
And last week, for the first time in 4 months, I had a face-to-face session with the client, and
Wow.
you know,
I bet I bet you felt like hugging them, even though you never hugged them before.
well, actually, we did. It's a client I've worked with for the last 10 or 12 years, and they all wanted to get together. They'd all agreed that they wanted to be there. It's 15 people in a ballroom that you
Mm.
couldn't see the screen, what was on the screen from one end to the other. Really good social isolation. Everyone had their own 8-foot table. And without technology, it would have been really, really challenging. But it's those little things you don't think about. Like, I haven't traveled out of town for 4 months. It's like, how many pairs of underwear am I going to need? Do I have socks? Do I have shaving cream or toothpaste? Like all those little things that you take for granted when you do it all the time. It's like, what do we do?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And
and
we replace that with, how's the lighting? And is
right.
there a shadow on my eye?
Check, check, check.
Exactly. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
So it's been quite different, but it's also been a learning opportunity. So I've gotten pretty good using things like Zoom and a number of other tools, and using beyond just the basics. And
Mhm.
this month is learning some other tools as well. So that's quite exciting, because I don't think things are going to go back to. I don't think there is such thing as a new normal. Things are going to be
Mm.
changing forever.
Mm.
But I think large events are not going to happen. So there's going to be hybrid events. So it's a great opportunity to really think it's not about the delivery mechanism. It's
Mhm.
really about our method. It's really about, what does the client need as an output or
Mhm.
an outcome? And how do we design to give them that, regardless of what the mechanism is?
You bet, you bet. Wonderful. So, if I can recap that, after 40 some years of doing things a certain way, with really focus on in person and live audiences, whether it's one on one. By the way, I must tell our viewers, some of my friends call me, Mr. Facilitator. Well, not when I'm around David. When I'm around David, I bow to Mr. Facilitator, David Gouthro. You are. You made quite a name for yourself in that whole area, whether it's strategic planning with the executives or whatever. Really, facilitation is probably your biggest focus for the last number of years, right?
Yes.
Making other people do the heavy lifting, right, David?
I prefer not to think of it quite that way, Dune, but yes.
I'm kidding. You make it easier for everybody to play a bigger game, and so I respect that, and I want to spend more and more of my time doing that. So I'm following my trail, your path. I'm just following your path there, my friend. Can you
I,
hear me still?
yeah, I'm good. Go for it.
Go for it.
How I can help.
There you go. Bless you. So, tell us. Obviously, you're doing some MC work as well. Before we go there, though, you mentioned your Zoom session last few days or whatever. 260 people. Obviously, you have the upgraded Zoom license, because they typically come at 100 is the level. Hosting 260 people.
No, actually, mine is still good for 100. My
Mhm.
client has one for 300, so I use theirs. But there was a potential for having more than 300, so I actually upgraded it to 500 just in case.
Oh, cool.
And it was great because they had some support people who were fabulous. So I had
Mhm.
two wing people, or whatever the appropriate term is,
Oh,
and
nice.
it was great. And we practiced, we rehearsed. A couple of us rehearsed the content, and then others rehearsed the process, when we were going to move into breakout rooms, how that was going to happen. And the neat thing is that one time we had a little bit more time
Mm.
that we needed. So I started just talking to these two folks about what they do and who they were as people. And one of them is a young woman from Colombia, and
Hmm.
the other young man from Vietnam. And
Oh.
so, just hearing about their experiences, and what it was like, what prejudices they experienced when they grew up, all of a sudden, the fact that we were going to be working together on the Zoom call was
Hmm.
much less significant as the fact I'd made a human connection with two really, really interesting people. I
Hmm.
loved it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you have always been known by myself and the rest of our CAPS community, as well as other communities, to be really a connector, and connecting individually and collectively. I know when you were I believe it was a year where you were the um, uh, the head of CAPS, the president of CAPS, the uh, chair. Your theme that year was better together, if I remember correctly. Better
That's right.
together, and that resonated with not just the saying, but in your actions. So facilitating and connecting people is really what you do at the core.
Well, it's like I believe that we're going to get a whole lot further by working together and working independently. And unfortunately, we see too many examples today
Hmm.
of people. I won't mention any names or countries in particular that are
No, no.
operating under their own agenda.
Hmm.
And we're so connected globally, whether it be electronically with our financial system, the air that we breathe, it's all the same air that's going around the globe.
Yeah.
And I guess part of it, because of my background in science, and this is getting a little bit geeky, but the
Mm.
fact that you and I are far apart, but there's actually a gravitational pull that that we exert on each other. The fact that we can't measure it because it's so tiny at this distance doesn't mean that it's not there. So, in actuality, we are literally all connected from a
Oh,
physics standpoint. But
yeah.
if you start to think, well, what are some other ways that we can be connected and take advantage of that? I think we all stand to be better off.
Yeah, yeah. Let's try that theory. So, David, I'm going to grab your shoulder just right now. I'm going to pull you forward. Come forward, come forward, come forward. It works. Back, back, pushing you back. Oh, yeah, we just proven the theory right there, my friend.
Thank goodness. I was always wondering if it was actually true.
Okay, it is. It is. I mean, it's on tape. It's on. They don't call it tape anymore. It's on video now, right? We just did that experiment.
It's real.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I'm going to show some photos, and I would like to invite you to just share a story or a anecdote or a sentiment about the photos.
Sure.
We have so I know you are actually a little bit of a photo kind of enthusiast. Is that right, or did I misread that somehow?
No, I
Like,
mean, I love taking photos. I wouldn't describe myself as a photographer because, that is my major camera right here. But I love paying attention to things that are a little bit different and being mindful. And one of the ways to do that is to capture it in photos. So I love taking photos.
well, wonderful. I'm going to just go ahead and share, and some photos are similar, so we might go kind of gloss by fairly quickly with just a comment or two quickly, and then others, we'll pause and have you kind of maybe share a story or two or three or five if it's that kind of a photo. So tell me if you can see the photos coming into view here. They're completely random order. I'm going to take myself out because, our viewers remember what I look like from the other interviews. And I'm going to even take out this little thing here. By now they know who we are. And and by now they kind of know what you look like. So let's focus on the photo. Tell us about this photo.
Okay, so this would be probably about 19 years ago. We were visiting some friends. We were in their pool. That's my wife and my daughter. Wife is on the left, and it's Canada Day, and our dog is just kind of looking down at the water. And what was funny about this is that my wife is American, or it's from the States. Like she's Canadian now, and I remember
Do you have dual citizenship?
she has dual citizenship. Yeah,
Cool.
which is a
Nice.
pain in the butt, quite frankly. But nevertheless, we won't go there. We'll stay out of that arena. But my mother-in-law made a comment that if she ever saw a Canadian flag on her granddaughter again, that was it. Cut out of the will. It was pretty funny. But it was a very precious memory. She's
Yeah.
my daughter's a little bigger now.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen some recent photos of your daughter and some of her accomplishments and personality, and we'll see some of those as well here. So, yeah, grandpa is what I'm hearing.
No, no. Well, now what do you mean? This is my wife and my daughter, not my granddaughter.
Oh, okay. I misheard that somehow. Okay.
No,
Anyway, sorry about that.
that's okay.
A brain, one of those bubbles that goes into the brain. I had one of those just now.
You have to be careful; those can kill you, dude.
Maybe I've been playing too much guitar lately, David, is what it is. That's what it is. I'm going to blame it on that.
Okay. So this is for Halloween. My daughter is unbelievably craftsy and creative. And so, she's made all of her own costumes. So here she is going as a peacock. I can't remember where she got the feathers. I don't think any birds were harmed in, excuse me, in the creation of this. But this is just out in the driveway as she is about to go out trick or treating.
Yeah, I know. I know you live in a beautiful area, and you go for a walk in the park. You'll share some of those photos soon here, I'm sure.
Yep. So that's a scene from Lighthouse Park where I walk just about every day, and it looks more like a sunset, but I think it was probably actually a sunrise.
Cool.
Okay, so this is my daughter and a friend of hers, and we had a garage sale that they largely publicized and handled all the sales of, and so they made a donation to the BC Cancer Agency. And part of it was to raise funds for this new machine, which is a PET CT scanner. So Anna and her friend Reed went down to the cancer agency, and Reed actually went into that thing, and they had a big check they presented. So it was really cool. She's
Nice.
She's very cause oriented. So she'll work hard if she thinks it's doing some good for some folks. Just like she worked most recently on the Cinderella project, which is
Wonderful.
absolutely amazing.
Now, just so we don't forget, as we sort of look at this sort of medical side of things, tell us about your giving blood on a consistent basis, and how many times have you done it so far?
Well, just once. No, that's not true. I used to give in Ontario all the time, and then a colleague of ours, Randall Craig, developed a blood disease, a blood cancer. And so Randall's request was, there's nothing you can do for me directly, but if you give blood, it's going to be doing something for someone. So a bunch of us have been giving blood on a regular basis. So every 2 months, I go to give blood and take a photo of it and post it. And it's just a way of saying, hey, Randall, you're a pretty important guy. I just want to acknowledge that we're still thinking about you and hope you continue to recover. So it's become quite a routine that I started when Randall sort of mentioned this when I was out here. And so every 2 months, down to give blood.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to say, just shout out to Randall, wonderful human being there, and we love you, my friend. And so tell us about this next photo here.
Okay, so that was like one of the things that you mentioned. We get more into this later. I love emceeing, and in this particular case, 3 of my friends were on a panel at a CAPS convention. I'm not sure, that might have been in Ottawa or something like that. And they were all talking about online learning. So we have Janet and Shelley and Rhonda, as far as I can see. So I was just interviewing them about some of their experiences. Really wanted people to think about there's other ways as a speaker to make money than just by standing in front of a group, that you can actually convey your expertise in other ways. So
So again, for the folks who may not know the CAPS acronym, so CAPS, so that's the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, of which David and I have been a member for a long time, and you've been longer than that, but for me, it's been since 2010. And so we see each other typically once a year at the convention for 3 or 4 days, and some keener stages there are 5 or 6 days. Cool. So again, facilitating and kind of connecting people, and tell us about this one.
Okay, this is let me see. This would be at my wife's. Well, I'll let you read it. I won't say it out loud because she's probably
forever young. It says.
Exactly.
10 years ago today. Yeah.
Yes, several years ago. Yeah, so that's just a shot on her birthday, sitting back with some balloons, and I'm sure there's people around behind me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We've dramatically, I shouldn't say we have had that particular room totally redone, but the shape is the same, the lamp's the same, everything else is different. My wife still looks basically the same, hasn't aged. Okay, this is a birthday party for my daughter at the local community center, and she's the one in the middle with the big smile on.
Yeah.
And she just enjoys life. She's pretty darn incredible and has lots of good friends. So this is a fun day. Looks like probably about, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe even more, probably more than that, 12 years ago.
Yeah. And so again, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, as they say. And so she enjoys being around people as well.
Well, more so than her parents. So like, she was great when she was little. And then there's this phase like, don't touch me. Stay away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but this is playing baseball. She's a fabulous baseball player.
Yeah.
When we first started playing ball, she could, when we were playing t-ball, for example, she could hit further than anyone else on the team, including the guys.
Yeah.
And so when we played softball, she's really, really smart, strong arm, strong, really good hitter. And this is
Mhm.
one of the places we went to for about 20 years,
Wow.
actually close to that. So on Reed Island in the Gulf Islands. And it was kind of
Yeah.
like a magical time right on the ocean.
Yeah.
So just being down on the rocks, seeing nature. And of course, you see Holly, our dog, in the background there. So
Yeah.
very, very special times. And again,
Yeah.
that's a sunset from Reed Island. Just
Y-
total chill out time.
I almost moved to BC one time. I used to work there a lot in Vancouver and Victoria, and even looked at houses in Victoria. But yeah, I asked my wife the second time if she wants to move. The first time she said, "Ah, sure." Second time she says, "Ah, no, maybe not." And so we backed out of it. But yeah, one move and one different decision, and we would have been in Victoria for a while. I don't know how long it would have lasted, but I quite enjoy it there.
Well, there's something very special about being near the ocean, and quite frankly, I could probably be making a lot more money if I was back in Toronto with some of my other colleagues, but the lifestyle cost to be too great. Like to be able
Mhm.
to be by the ocean and have that, have a sense of nature because the tides come up and down and it changes quite dramatically. And again, this is Anna with one of her friends on Reed Island, probably
Yeah,
about 8 or 9 years ago.
yeah, yeah.
So, so this okay, this needs a little explanation. I was visiting someone in Lionsgate Hospital, and you walk into the elevator, and this is the sign that greets you. So I'm going to have to get a little bit closer to read. I had to take a picture of because I was so upset with it. So it said it was about hand hygiene, that nurses were 90% compliant, physicians 54% compliant, things like that. And I thought, why on earth? People are already anxious being in the hospital, either because they're sick or you're going to visit people who are sick. And so here you have this thing in the back of the elevator that you can't miss that says, hey, guess what? The physicians don't wash their hands regularly enough. Like, first of all, I sent that to a doctor friend of mine who was really quite angry. Like, it's Brene Brown would say that shaming people like this is not a really good way to get things done.
Mhm.
And I actually, found out who the senior person was in the Vancouver Coastal Health and said, this is ridiculous. Like, if there's an issue, this should be maybe in the staff washroom or
Yeah.
things like that, but not in an elevator. Like, the public want to feel confident that they're going to be okay when they go in there and not say, I wonder if my doctor is the one that doesn't wash his or her hands. I was furious.
Yeah, I know one of your kind of things that you do, and one of you have this, what is it, button, the little thing that says that has a mirror on it. Tell us about that, because I think it relates to this a little bit here.
Oh my gosh, I wish I had one with me.
Yeah,
They're usually everywhere. So one of the things that
I,
I've found, sorry?
I think I have it in the back of the room here, but go ahead and talk about it. I'm going to go and grab it.
So one of the things that I found in a lot of the work that I did is people are really good at identifying things that someone else should do. Like someone should tell the boss, someone should pick up the garbage, someone should change the paper in the photocopier, but it was always someone else. So I thought, okay, how do we make this so people start to be more accountable for the things they see that could be done? And so I got these buttons made up with the word someone should on it, and then the red circle and the stroke through it, like the no smoking sign, that same kind of symbol. And on the back was the mirror. And the notion was, if you hear yourself use the word someone should, then you either should take action yourself, let someone else know who's in a better position to do that. And if you're not prepared to do those two things, then give up your right to complain about it. Because identifying the things that someone else should do doesn't do any good. So exactly. That's a beautiful button. Whoever created that must be a pretty special guy.
That guy did.
Oh, him.
Oh, it doesn't work over the web. The mirror. You. Oh, let me see if I can get you. No. Where are you here?
That'll be pretty much define the laws of physics, Dune, but it's always worth a check.
All right, my left hand is not good, so I'm going to go with my right hand. See if I can get you there. Oh, there you are.
Oh. So the notion, again, this is being kind of geeky, but diving into realm of subatomic particle physics. There's something called the uncertainty principle. And the notion is that when you're trying to measure something really, really tiny, the act of observing it has an impact on it. So you can tell where something was, but not where it is. Or you can tell its mass, but not speed. There's uncertainty in the measurement because the observer is somehow having an influence on it. So that gets blown up to the macro level to say that if you see something, you're in a position to do something about it. So, to have a list of things that someone else should do is of absolutely no value to the organization. People come back a year later and say, yeah, those are all the things that someone should do, but no one has.
Mm-hmm.
And, I find it, especially when people are talking about someone should tell the CEO or the whoever.
Mm-hmm.
I say, well, have you told them that? And then they go, oh, he knows or she knows, right? And it's just this whole lack of accountability to act on the things where you see an opportunity. So I use those in programs to give to people and just as a reminder. And once they've had one, people remember them, they hang on to them. Sometimes they just use them to check for groceries in their teeth. But other times it is a reminder where you hear that someone, should you nod your head and at least ask the question, this is something I could be doing about that. And if not me, who? And if neither of those things have answers to them, then let's give up the right to complain about it, because complaining never does anything on its own.
You bet. I'm going to show one of the videos that you sent me. Based on what we're talking about, I'm just going to show maybe the Just Choose
Sure.
video. That's even just the title itself sounds like it might be kind of connected to this topic here we're talking about. So tell us about that while I bring that video up.
Well, part of this came from, there's so many things that we can't do anything about. So, like, a lot of people complain about what's going on south of the border. A lot of people complain about, well, this particular government program doesn't work for me, or this, that, and the other thing. And, so often we're in a position, we don't get to choose the things that happen around us. We don't get to choose the weather. We don't get to choose the interest rates, all those other kinds of things. And the feeling of being out of choice can be incredibly stressful and depressing.
Mm-hmm.
So this was to say, so there's a whole pile of things you can't choose. What can you choose? And so you could choose your attitude. You can choose how you respond to something. You can choose if you want to say something to someone. You can choose what time you go to bed. You can choose what time you get up in the morning. And if you can find in the midst of things you can't do, just something that gives you a little bit of a sense of control, how much better would that be? And that was actually picked up by Brian Lee, who I think you probably know.
Calgary, yeah.
Yeah. So he does this series for healthcare workers, and he asked me to do a version of that for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially in healthcare, pretty much you have to go to work. People need you. People complain.
Mm-hmm.
And what can you control? And I guess ultimately, you first of all have to believe that you can control how you respond to things. Otherwise, you give up your power to events and other people. And that, to me, I think is just sad, because you make yourself a victim of what's going on around you. So this video is just a reminder, there are some things that you can do something about.
Wonderful. Thank you to our friend MJ Smallman. I've just chimed in here. The comment came in a little while ago, and it says, nice, I like that. So she might be referring to the mirror conversation and certainly this whole topic that you're talking about here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the clip here and let's kind of check it out. Okay, so I'm going to.
Hello, my name is David Gouthro, and I put together this very short video just in response to some things I've been hearing from some of my friends and colleagues. So many of them are very frustrated with what's going on with the coronavirus and all the restrictions and the things that they can't do. And it made me think back to some work I used to do way back when on stress management, and that the comment I'd make is that the feeling of out of control isn't probably as big a problem as the fact that you feel out of choice. So in any particular situation, you have no choice but how to respond. You're kind of locked in, and that's a huge source of stress. So I started thinking about, in this time of COVID-19, what are some choices that we can make, things that people can't take away from us? So you may not agree with any of these, but these are ones that I found have been helpful, and I'm starting to feel a little bit like a victim of what's going on around me. So
What are some of the things I can actually choose? So one of the things, I can choose my attitude. Do I feel good? Do I feel bad about something? Now, of course, that only works if I actually believe I can choose my attitude. I happen to believe I can. I can choose how long I wish to sleep. Do I want to sleep the day away? Do I want to just sleep for a short period of time? That's a choice I can make. Uh, who do I say hello to? Who do I talk to? When I'm out walking around and keeping my distance, who do I choose to smile at or not? I see a lot of people walking by and just put their head down to the ground. They don't want to make eye contact at all. I'm pretty sure that that doesn't decrease your chance of getting the virus if you're looking down. But to make that human contact is a choice I can make. I can choose who to have conversations with on the phone, or who to have conversations with on Zoom, or in House Party, which is an app that a lot of folks are using now. I can choose how to spend my discretionary time. When I don't have to get things done, I have so many choices in terms of how I can spend it. On Netflix, I can choose if I'd rather have a conversation with my spouse or my kids, or someone off the back porch in the neighborhood. I can choose what I think about. I mean, those thoughts are totally mine. No one can control that. The government can't clamp down and tell me to keep a safe distance with my thoughts. It's a choice I can exercise. I can choose the photos that I take when I'm out and around. It could be in the house, in the yard, it could be going for a walk. I can choose that. I can choose the art I wish to create, whether it's just drawing with crayons or pencil sketches or something on an iPad. I can choose those things. I can choose the movies that I watch. So I could choose to watch zombie movies, or I could choose to watch vampire movies, or I could choose to watch old Disney movies, some of the things that bring me back to my childhood when things were so much simpler and I didn't have to worry about making a living. And of course, that will impact the attitude I can choose to have. I can choose how often I shift mode from standing, walking, looking, reading, talking, whatever it might happen to be. I can choose what liquids I consume, water, tea, or something of alcoholic nature. I can make those choices. I can choose whether or not to give blood. Yes, you can still give blood, and more than ever, blood is needed. So I'm actually doing that tomorrow. I can choose which of the many webinars that all seem to be happening at the same time I can take in, or whether or not to watch a webinar. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them, and they're all trying to help me either cope with COVID-19, or how am I going to get my in-person business online. I've had enough. I've got webinar-itis. I can choose not to look at those and release that particular infection. I can choose who I offer to help, who I ask for help, who I reach out to help me. I can choose how much exercise I can get, or what kind of exercise, or if exercise. I can make those choices myself. I can choose what time I get up in the morning. I could choose what clothes I wear below my waist if I'm on a Zoom call. I know you might not want to picture some of the options there, but that's a choice I can make. I could choose the extent to which I awfulize or magnify the economic challenges that we're dealing with and the impact it's going to have on me. Not to say to Pollyannish and it's not having any effect at all, but I can choose to what extent I make that worse than it actually is. I can choose the extent to which I choose to be curious rather than judgmental when I hear something that I don't necessarily understand or agree with. So, I think it's really important whenever I feel something that I can't do anything about, to pause and dig deep and say, is there something in that thing I can't do anything about where I can actually find a new choice or exercise a choice? So I know it's really easy for me to say, but when there's things I can't control, I don't want to make myself a victim of that. To keep mentally healthy or mentally wealthy, in fact, I need to make choices. And if I can't find choices, create them. So that's what works for me. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, then back to Netflix.
Fantastic. So, David, our friend, our friend MJ here also said again, the freedom to choose. How fortunate are we? We are definitely fortunate because in Canada we have more freedom than many do, and even in times of COVID, we have lots of freedom.
So true. Well, I remember, Viktor Frankl, wrote about logotherapy was what he created, but, being in a concentration camp, that,
Mm-hmm.
being able to thrive as much as possible in absolutely horrible circumstances was a function of the choices you make about how you view and choose what you're in the midst of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. As we sort of go beyond choices there, I know you choose to be in the forest quite often, in the beautiful park. Maybe I'm going to roll one of these video clips here soon of you in, is it Lighthouse Park?
Well, there's a couple. Lighthouse Park is the one that I normally go to. There's some others as well.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, COVID-19 kept the parking lot shut down. It was a little bit too far to get there to
Yeah.
walk, so it went to some other alternatives. But you probably
Yeah.
have some shots from a couple of different parks, most of which are likely Lighthouse Park.
Yeah, I have this one here called Morning Fogs, and it has some background sound and whatnot with bird chirping and whatnot. I would love for you to do the commentary over it while I play it here. So give me a second to cue that up. You know which one I'm referring to, I hope.
I do. It actually sort of said morning frogs.
Oh, I gotta have my reading glasses on. Morning frog.
I might have said fog, but it was just in the morning. I had to stop, and I hope the volume got loud enough. But the sound of the frogs was unbelievable. It'd be easy to just walk by, just focus on the walk, and not pay attention to what's going on around. But we'll see if you can hear some of this.
Yeah, and we'll make it kind of, at first, we'll make it big here.
This is one of the alternative parks that I went to. Kind of hard to hear, but this was an area. This is one of those parks that you can just go forever. You park along the side of the street. It looks like there's lots of people there. Then you don't see anyone. It's dog friendly. There's occasionally bigger critters that are in there, but it was just I had to stop and capture the sound of the frogs. I wasn't anticipating at the time that it would be played publicly, so I should have used a big convex mic or concave mic or something like that to capture it all. But it's just beautiful. And when 5 minutes from home you can be out in the midst of nature, just the sort of the silence other than the natural sounds, it's incredibly nourishing. I know if I don't get to go for a walk before I come into the office, it usually doesn't get off to as good a start as I'd like it to.
Yeah. Cool. We'll definitely get back to Lighthouse Park and other park, your alternate parks and whatnot. But let's switch gear a little bit. Tell us more about the work that you've been doing for decades. Maybe expand on it beyond the bio and intro there. Take us through kind of your life's work so far and how it's evolving to, obviously post-COVID is going to evolve a bit. But give us a sense of the kind of work that you do and how does that work?
Okay, so how did I get into it? It's probably a start, and I dabbled in a couple of different potential careers that didn't turn into ones, but one was selling life insurance it was an experimental branch with Confederation Life at the time. May they rest in peace. And then I sold real estate for a while, and I sold a house to a friend of mine whose wife worked for a company called Wilson Learning, and I quite enjoyed sort of what it sounded like they did. So I took one of their courses and loved it, and decided I'd rather do that than sell real estate. So I ended up having an opportunity to be a trainer for Wilson Learning Corporation for the Toronto office, for a Minneapolis-based company. So I got to do training programs in customer relations and sales. I got to do it in Canada and also in Europe, and absolutely loved it and got into training trainers, and just love being able to do that kind of work. I guess I came back from working over in the UK, teaching some programs over there, and a headhunter approached me from Apple Canada, who I'd heard about but didn't know very much about, and asked me if I'd be interested in interviewing for a job as being a national training manager, which there were no other people to do that. And I said, oh, sure, I'll give it a shot. And the irony is I'd taken some computer science courses at the University of Waterloo, which is probably one of the top universities for computer science in North America. If not
And mathematics, probably.
well, math and computer science, right?
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, math was a faculty as opposed to a department in science or things like that. So I kept dropping it because it was too early in the morning. And so I found myself working at a computer company and ended up doing all kinds of things there. So putting on training programs. At one point, I was involved in setting up, way back when there was an organization called FIRA, the Foreign Investment Review Agency, where foreign-owned companies had to demonstrate they're providing value to the Canadian economy. So our way of doing that was to get involved with the Institute for Computer Research at the University of Waterloo as one of the founding members. So really, really cool stuff. Loved doing that. I also had an opportunity to get programs and boxes and all kinds of stuff translated into French, because there was in Quebec l'Office de la langue française that said if you're going to sell here, you have to have this kind of package and this, that, and the other thing. So trying to be a translator between the folks in California who couldn't understand why the French they use in France couldn't be used in Canada because different keyboards and things like that. And actually ensuring that things got translated. I couldn't speak a word of French. So Apple was here, give this to Dave. He'll try anything. So I was involved in that and buying clone computers and fighting copyright battles with it was an amazing experience. And so had 6 great years there. Then I started to went into the training business again. Now I was doing a lot of training programs, but eventually I started to get tired of people saying, we're not the problem, it's them. Our managers, it's our bosses. So I sort of changed my focus from doing training to working more with senior groups, with boards, with people that didn't have anyone else to complain to as a reason for their inaction, which I actually found much more challenging and much more interesting and hopefully much more beneficial to the organization. So I went from training to facilitation, doing board planning sessions, things like that. Got into keynote speaking, and one of the things I really love doing is emceeing. Because I think a lot of times the MC is looked at as a person that just keeps things on track. But I believe the role is to ensure an optimal learning experience for the participants. So how you set up a learning environment with hundreds of people, how you ensure that they feel engaged, how you make the connections between speakers so things are logical. And I think it adds way more value. It's also way more challenging, and it's way more in the moment. So it's kind of like the bigger the group, the better. So you can actually engage people in a facilitated conversation with 600 or 700 people in a way that's meaningful. So I love design challenges. I like figuring out, this is what we need to do. How can you do that? So that brings us basically up to yesterday afternoon, about 3 p.m., unless you want to dive into some other things more specifically.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. All eyes were on you in this particular photo here, my friend.
Well, that was part of my, as a facilitator, you do have to keep your eyes on a lot of different things.
Yeah. So training and facilitation, and I know you also do some keynote speaking and obviously some coaching and all those kinds of other things as well. But it sounds like facilitation and emceeing is probably are the 2 things that you want to kind of spend a bit more continuous time going forward as well.
Yeah, and I think, although I enjoy the keynote speaking, fundamentally, I believe that I think the conference model is broken because so many conferences are set up with speaker network, speaker network, speaker, and it just goes content after content after content. And I actually think it's abusive or a waste of the intellectual capital in the room. If you have one person at the front talking and 700 or 800 people listening to that person's perspective, and they don't have an opportunity to wrestle with what of that are they going to use and what difference it's going to make. So, I think as an MC, there's an opportunity to give people time now in smaller groups. Say, you just heard Dune on stage. What of what he said do you think might be of value to you? What value would it be? What would the first step be? And have those conversations with each other. Because I'm going to remember way more about what I say to myself about what I heard you say than just by having your content wash over me.
Yeah.
So that's why just straight keynote speaking, I've done interactive keynotes, but just straight talking, I don't enjoy doing that because I don't like being on the receiving end of that. So just saying yes, facilitation and emceeing are where I'd really like to be spending more of my time. I don't do any coaching because I'm way too opinionated. And all this coactive coaching, like there's great models out there, but so many people put out a little sign that says coach. And anyhow, I love a lot of the coaches that I know. I think I'm just going to stop there before I have people starting to throw things at me.
All right, cool. I'm going to show another video. And so based on what you've just been discussing here, I'm going to look at my library of videos and I'm going to pick one. I think I'm going to pick this one. I think I know what I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Dancing on Shifting Sands. I don't think we have seen that yet, have we?
No,
Tell us about that.
That brings tears to my nose. No, well, so a lot of people, and there's lots of webinars and things like that. How do we move through the COVID crisis? How do you get back on track and things like that when we get back to normal or when the new normal emerges? And I think that that's setting up an expectation that can't be met. I don't think there is going to be anyone normal for a long, long time. And so, I was trying to think of what's a metaphor that will help people through and beyond COVID-19, help them thrive there. And so the image that came to mind was dancing on shifting sands. And, the sands are always shifting for us. And it's how you get comfortable with that. So part of the notion was to be aware of what the sands are that are shifting. And it varies based on what industry, what company you're in, things like that. So some of the things, I do a lot of work in financial services. So some of the sands that are shifting might be regulatory burden. It could be around interest rates. It could be things like that. It could be sort of, employee engagement, whatever it might happen to be. And it's going to be different for every organization. So first of all, what are the sands that are shifting? And the second part is, what are the winds that are causing the sands to shift? So the fact that sands are shifting is quite normal because of the forces that are on them. So that could be terrorism, it could be global economy, could be COVID-19. All those things are causing the sands to shift. And they're always going to be shifting. So once that's normalized, then if I have to get comfortable dancing on shifting sands, why the notion of dancing? And it's because dancing is something I think you come to with joy. It's almost like play. If you have to play, it's kind of hard to play. If you have to dance, it takes the fun out of it. But what kind of attitudes or skills or mindset do you need to get comfortable dancing on shifting sands? And part of that is being comfortable with being uncomfortable and, being willing to shift from one balance point to another and not be looking for the solid ground that you can stand on and say, okay, I can just execute this level for the next 5 or 10 years. Not going to happen. So if you line up your expectations and the reality of the environment, you're likely going to be much more successful, much less stressed. So that was basically the premise behind it. And I probably just summarized most of what's in the video.
Cool. Well, let's roll the video here and let's watch it together.
Hello, I'm David Gouthro. I put together this short video to describe what I think is going to be required for us to thrive through and beyond COVID-19. I keep hearing people predicting what's going to happen, when we're going to get back to normal, how we're going to get back to normal, at what pace we're going to get back to normal. And quite frankly, there's so many variables that I don't think we're ever going to get back to one normal, much as some of us would want that to be the case. I think in order to be successful, we all have to be dancing on shifting sands. And let me describe what I mean by that. The shifting sands are the things that are moving underneath us. The things that are going to impact what we do and how we do it. And some of those shifting sands can be public attitudes. Sometimes those shifting sands can be interest rates. Sometimes those shifting sands can be what's happening in other parts of the world, what's happening south of the border. It could be employees coming to work, employees not coming to work. All of those things, they're not going to happen. There's not going to be a switch that's flipped. So we have to be constantly able to be dancing on these shifting sands. Now, part of it means for each individual or each organization to say, what are the sands that are shifting underneath us? Because that will vary based on industry, based on country, based on experience, based on so many things. But the first conversation is, what are the sands that are shifting and are likely to shift that are never going to stay totally stable? Well, what about the dancing part? Dancing to me is something that you do with a sense of joy. You come to dancing freely. You don't dance because you have to, you dance because you want to. And whether that's physical dancing, which not my particular strength, or if it's dancing in the heart, in the mind, or in the spirit, it's how you come to this shifting sands and how you survive and thrive on it. So the first thing is to realize it's never going to be stable. Second thing is get used to the fact it's going to shift. Third, be aware of what the sands are that are shifting underneath you. And fourth, how do you develop the skills of the attitude to come to it with a sense of joy and a willingness and a commitment to find a way to make dancing on shifting sand something that will actually help you be successful.
Cool. So you do have a lot of hats, my friend. Do you have a lot of hats?
I do have quite a few hats kicking around, yes. Yeah, the other metaphor that perhaps I could offer, Dune, and is the nose flute.
Nose flute. Tell us about the nose flute. Matter of fact, I have a clip of you with the nose flute. So go ahead and give us the live version, and then I'll play the clip.
So the live version is that, I was trying to figure out a way to get people to be more comfortable with learning, being a learner rather than a knower, or be better at learning than just knowing. And so the nose flute is a beautiful metaphor for this, because the nose flute is a musical instrument. And you play by blowing through your nose. Sounds kind of gross. And if you're congested, be respectful. But you blow down through the top and you keep your mouth open over a hole that you may or may not be able to see here. And by moving your tongue back and forth, you're able to change the tone. So I find that some people, first of all, won't even try it. They'll say, I'll try it when I get home. Some will try it and maybe get eventually a tone and say, there, did it, good enough. And I think, as we all know, good enough is the enemy of great. If you continue to experiment, you'll find that by drawing your tongue back and forth, kind of like on a slide whistle, you can change the tone. So, like so.
Wow.
Again, but some people will stop there, June. They say, okay, that's good, I've got it. And I'll explain how I use this as a metaphor in a moment. But if I can pick discrete points in there, and you being a musician, I'm sure will appreciate this. I should be able to play tunes. So might be able to play classical nose flute, something from Mozart, something like a and so on and so forth. Or spaghetti western, something now, for those that really want to get into this, I've poked a little bit of a hole in mine to play vibrato, which I know musicians will know about. So here's the song that comes to mind from the Mon of La Mancha many years ago. That's the song that comes to mind when I think about making 3 times more money than I ever have with half the effort. And this is the song that comes to mind, hopefully with a little vibrato. And I could go on. Sometimes you need people to tug your shorts for those high notes. But the metaphor that I use in organizations, I can usually get people to agree with this statement that you'll grow your company faster if you're willing to make mistakes. Like everyone's talking about innovation and things like that. And everyone says, yeah, I agree with that. But then there's all kinds of evidence that they don't create a culture that supports that. So you get in trouble if you make a mistake, this, that, and the other thing. So I just changed the phrase slightly to you'll grow faster if you're willing to blow it. And then I introduce them to the nose flute. And when they get them and try them, I make the point that the resistance that you have to doing something you've never done before is the same resistance to coming up with an idea that might be judged by your peers, but might in fact be a stepping stone to something that you need. So I use a lot of nose flutes. in my work as a metaphor. And quite frankly, people often remember me for the nose flute, can't remember anything else. But I figure better to remember it for something like the nose flute than forgotten for everything else. So
Wow. Cool. Hey,
so
I was going to say, so how many hundreds have you ordered so far and sort of hand them out, if you were to guess?
well, I used to get the inexpensive ones from the States, and probably a few thousand of those.
Uh-huh.
And then I discovered these uh, down in Granville Island, and there's a fellow who has a nose flute website in France, and he said, that's the Cadillac of the nose flute. And he put me in touch with the manufacturer in South Africa. So I've been ordering, sort of 1,000 here, 1,000 there. They're more expensive, but much more durable, and they don't snap when you sit on them, which is very important for a safety-oriented culture.
Yeah, yeah. And tell us about, you actually got at the international level of, tell us about that story, the Symphony Orchestra of Nose Flute.
Okay, I'll try to give you the abbreviated version. So a number of years ago, I had a colleague working with me who was taking a new media program, and she had to design a website. So I said, okay, let's make up an organization. The Vancouver Nose Flute Ensemble does not exist. So I did a few demo videos. She had a website, sort of thought nothing of it. But 5 years after that, I got a call from a Swedish sounding gentleman. Said, yes, I'm with a marketing firm in Stockholm. We are putting together a proposal to help a pharmaceutical company launch a new nasal spray. And we were thinking it'd be good to work with the Vancouver Nose Flute Ensemble. So I had no idea how they found me, the age of the internet, I guess. Excuse me. But I said, sure, thinking it was a joke. Apparently not. About 2 weeks later, I got a call and said, yes, we got the engagement. We're going to help this pharmaceutical company launch a new nasal spray. We would like to show them the nose flute. Could you come over and demonstrate the nose flute? There's an AGM and a planning meeting happening in the south of Spain. And could you bring the nose flute over? So I said, well, I could. I might be able to add a little more value. So I agreed to do a team development session for the new management team and showed them the nose flute. And now, no offense meant to any Swedes out there, but the Swedes are not particularly effusive. It's kind of hard to read the emotions sometimes. So I showed them the nose flute, and they kind of went, which meant they loved it. So, great concept. So anyhow, I didn't hear too much more about that. They ended up starting up a nose flute website, for the Swedish Nose Flute Orchestra, and I'll tell you more about that in just a sec. But they got nose flutes printed up with a product name on it, little boxes with instructions on it and stuff like that. I got a call in the summertime. My wife and daughter and I were on that Reed Island vacation. Just happened to pick up calls. Said we'd like to send a camera crew over to videotape the Vancouver Nose Flute Ensemble, which doesn't exist, playing the nose flute. We'd like to send 6 people over, and said, well, I could come to Sweden and save you a whole lot of time and money. I said, no, you don't understand. We want Vancouver as a backdrop, the home of the internationally famous Vancouver Nose Flute Ensemble. So part of me went, yay, and part of me went, uh-oh. But they arrived on our doorstep the day after we got home, and we had a nice little barbecue. And then for the next day, we went out, and they were filming me playing nose flutes in all kinds of places I'd never played nose flute. But my office overlooks Stanley Park in the distance, so that was a nice backdrop for playing the nose flute. At this time, they kind of cottoned on to the fact that there was no ensemble. Right, it was just me, but they were fine with that. So I did a number of demo videos in the office, outside the office. At one time, they had me on a remote mic coming into the office, and my car was yellow, same color as their product box. And that remote mic, they're filming me playing hi ho, it's off to work I go. Like I never do that going into the office. And at one time, they wanted some shots of downtown Vancouver. So going across the Lionsgate Bridge, on rush hour traffic, 4 lanes merge into one. Right? Mm-hmm. And so I was on a remote mic. There was a van in front of me with the back doors open, cameraman in the back with his camera sticking out like a tail gunner in a bomber. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, get closer, get closer, get closer. So 4 lanes merging into one, rush hour traffic, drawing a standard automobile playing on my nose, like distracted driving. These days wouldn't have gone over at all. Anyhow, they ended up showing 3 commercials on national TV for 6 weeks in Sweden. And at the end of each clip, I had to say, "Snor.nu, it's for you." The website was snor.nu. And if they go to the website, they could order a nose flute, and it had the product name on it. They could do things like call up someone's name and go out to Google Images, pull up their face, and they could manipulate their mouse to see a nose flute on the face of Elvis Presley or Margaret Thatcher. Anyhow, it's all very cool. So I said, listen, if there's anything else I can do, happy to help out. But wow, we don't really think we can afford you. I got paid fairly well for the commercials. So I said, if my wife and daughter can be involved, we can figure this out. So I said, okay, we're having the official launch in the fall. They sent me a business class ticket, 2 economy class tickets to fly over to Stockholm. And yes, my wife thoroughly enjoyed the business class seat in the way over. My daughter and I were 7, or my daughter was 7. We were in the back. Come out in the middle of Stockholm airport, dead tired. 5 members of the Swedish Nose Flute Orchestra. Music stands in front of them. Great yellow jackets playing "O Canada" on nose flute.
Wow.
And at this time, there were over 50,000 members of the Swedish Nose Flute Orchestra.
There you.
These commercials have been running for 6 weeks. Like, nobody knows me in Canada, but for a short period of time, I was known in Stockholm. One other thing that we did, my wife and daughter got to tour around Stockholm, which is a beautiful city. I mean, Sweden is just gorgeous, so easy to get around. But there was a talk show that was filmed in a studio that was cantilevered over the Stockholm train station, which is huge. And they'd send out a note to on the website saying, "David is going to be down here. Bring your nose flute." So while I was up in the green room, there about 30 or 40 people showed up with their nose flutes, and they were being conducted by someone who was getting to play Hava tunes on nose flute. Like, it was unbelievable. And my wife and daughter were down below, and as I came across the screen, because it's all being shown on screen, my wife overheard a couple of kids say, "Look, it's David. Do you think he'd sign our nose flute?" So she said, I've got a little bit of pull. So when I came down, these kids rushed up and I was signing the nose. So it's like, you could never make this up. It was absolutely hilarious.
Oh, fantastic. So the moral of the story is, you never know how you're going to impact the world, and you never know how you're going to be internationally famous, and a bit of a service to Canada in a way that you probably never predicted.
I think the principle is say yes more often than you say no, right? Especially if you have
that was another nose flute.
That was a wooden nose flute that were carved. That was from Africa as well.
Yeah.
So I've got something like this, Whoop. Whoa. So on and so forth.
Cool.
It's led to some pretty interesting adventures, I must say. But it's, our mutual friend of ours, Linda Edgecombe, others might have used these questions, but she often says, "When's the last time you did something for the first time?" And I think that's such an important question to consider and then to act on. So, this just all came about as a result of what the heck, why not? And, embrace the opportunities.
Yeah. Hey, a friend MJ chimed in again here earlier on when you were talking about the dancing with the shifting sands. She really likes it. She says she likes the metaphor, and thank you, David.
Well, we're going to start some workshops on helping people work through that. So now that picture down below there, that or that one, the one in the bright crazy jacket. My daughter at one point said she wanted to go thrifting. I had never gone thrifting before. So she and I went down to the States, down to Blaine and Seattle, and went thrifting, which was just an unbelievable experience. And I picked up that jacket. It was just pretty amazing. It's a whole other culture, and I really appreciate it. In fact, the pants I'm wearing right now, I got in that thrifting shop. Cool. Hey, I was going to mention
Actually, MJ, if you could tell me if the sound is still good out there, if you hear any kind of echo or anything like that, or anybody who's watching out there, um, anytime where I'm sharing screens and whatnot, I just wanted to confirm that. I'm just going to swap this out. Give me a second, David.
Sure.
Look at that. We love it so much we have it in duplicate.
So that's a funny story.
Mm. So, David, again, you kind of live a very diverse and balanced life, whether it's relaxation, whether it's by the ocean and in the beautiful parks and in the corporate world of leadership and management and executives and whatnot. Tell us, what are some lessons that you've learned over the decades about leadership? Do you have 2 or 3 leadership kind of lessons or stories that you want to share with the group, leaving the names of the innocent out of it?
Well, I quite often get asked if you could only recommend one leadership program, what would you recommend? And although it doesn't serve me very well, I say I wouldn't pick one leadership program. In your company, I'd have people, when they meet, talk about leadership and not talk about solving problems, but talk about how they're leading and to share some of their ideas with each other. Because every leadership program, everything's got some value to it. There's a lot of formulas and things like that, but I think leadership operates more as a garden than as a machine, and so there's lots of flexibility and things like that. But that's my picture of don't try to trim your eyebrows with an electric razor on your own. But
COVID stories.
COVID stories. I think it's about constantly learning and not being so arrogant that you think you know it all. Like Carol Dweck wrote a book on mindset and talked about growth mindset and fixed mindset. And I think these days, with everything going on, the fastest way to get to the bottom and prove yourself useless in the organization is to think that there's only one way to lead and one way to do it, and you've got the answer. I'll give you a good example of leadership. This organization that I did the hour and a half meeting with 200, it was actually 268 people. I sold myself short of that, 268. The CEO really wanted to help people understand what his vision was. And this is for a very complex organization. But he was also really clear that, I don't know how to do this. I know it's got to be done. I know what it looks like, but I really need you folks to define that and describe it. And it's tough in some organizations where people assume that the leader, he or she, has the answers, and all you need to do is tell me what they are and I can go and execute. That doesn't work anymore. I think, to know what you're good at and what you know, and let other people bring things to the party is really, really important. I think these days, everyone's talking about the importance of innovation. And the challenge is this: as a leader, what do you do that says we really want your innovation? What are some things that actually shut it down inadvertently? And it's like the metaphor I like to think about is there's, you have a grasshopper in a jar and the lid's on the jar. And grasshopper jumps up and say, jump, we need to do things that are innovative here, but the lid is on. And so the grasshopper keeps hitting its head and falling back down. And pretty soon the grasshopper learns to jump how high? Just shy of the lid. And then what happens? Things change, and there really is a need to engage people. And the lid comes off, and the leader says, "Okay, grasshopper, go for it. The lid's off." And the grasshopper goes, "Right. I heard a similar story before, and the lid was still on." So, how as a visible leader do you demonstrate the kind of things that you want, the acceptance of your own fallacies, your own humanity, that makes it okay for other people to do the same? Amy Edmondson recently wrote a book called The Fearless Organization on the importance of psychological safety for leadership and innovation and things like that. And, as a leader, how am I doing things to make things psychologically safe for the people that report into me and the whole organization? Or am I doing some things that might be misinterpreted, that people don't feel it's safe to speak up, to correct mistakes and things like that? So, and I guess the only other thing is that leadership comes from any chair, from any seat. It's not necessarily just the person at the top of the ladder. It's leadership is helping people go someplace they wouldn't have gone on their own otherwise, and
Right.
what needs to be done there. So I think it takes courage to be a leader. I think it takes vulnerability. I think it takes experimentation. And I'll often make the distinction between playing to win and playing to not lose. So, what kind of environment to create for other people that doing the same things that you've done things before, especially coming through and beyond COVID-19, isn't going to cut it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, there's a great video here of just another. I don't know which park this is, but tell us where this is, and tell us maybe a story behind that. And yeah.
It's similar to the one where the frogs were. And part of it, I was walking along and I heard this noise, and I thought, I wonder where that's coming from. So you just kind of tromped through the bush and came across this waterfall. And it's not Niagara Falls, but it's mine. It's close.
Mhm.
And again, to be able to experience that in nature, just sometimes we have to get our feet off the concrete and just realize that nature's been around a whole lot longer than we have, and let's make sure that continues, that it continues to last longer than we do, and not just kind of destroy it. So I just really think it's important to get out and appreciate what we have around us.
Yes. It's as we think about leadership, and as we think about innovation, and really going with the times and evolving and whatnot, it sounds to me like you have discovered that you got to make that journey with some joy and some kind of humanity, for lack of a better term. Is that where you kind of come to?
Yeah, I mean, definitely humanity. And I think, we hear that over and over again and how important that is. I think in bringing joy, it's got to be legitimate joy, not just pretending to be happy when you're not. It's not about being Pollyannish when things are tough.
Mhm.
And I think it's about fully engaging. I don't, as soon as you start holding back, others hold back. I also
Mhm.
think that it helps to have a sense of humor. Like mine may be inappropriate sometimes, but it's saved my bacon so many times that, how do you take serious things lightly and take light things seriously? How do you make it okay? Like some of the toughest times when I was doing some co-development with a couple of my colleagues who were doing leadership development programs for IBM Canada many years ago, and we worked our butts off. But thank goodness we were having a good time and laughing doing it, because otherwise, it would have been really hard to stick with it. So I in fact used to do programs called Fun Without Guilt, that some people would think, you're either having fun or you're being serious and professional. They're not opposite ends of extremes. You can be professional and having a good time, or professional being miserable. And I think most people would rather work with someone that's being professional. That's the expectation, but also enjoying themselves and having a good time. Not at my expense, but just because that's the way they are in the world.
Mhm. Mhm. Uh, let's hear a similar sentiment here of you. Where is this? Is this around your house?
That's up, I think, Cypress Provincial Park, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's take a listen here. I was saying that I can see a little bit of a former Apple employee in this video here with your Apple earbuds securely in place. Oh, sorry, I muted us there.
I couldn't hear the sound on the video at all.
Oh, really? Okay. Then you know what? We're gonna do a redo here. So I missed that. Sorry about that. Let's do this again here.
Okay, so it's Thursday morning. It's sunny. I'm walking my dog, listening to songs from the Carole King Tapestry album. Somebody has to tell me how it can get much better than this, because I just can't imagine it at this very moment. Hope you're having a great day, staying safe, staying apart, staying healthy, and staying happy.
So the first
Okay.
version, the first version is referred to as the Charlie Chaplin version. Sort of silent, no sound, right?
When I take them are just, I feel so grateful to be alive to start with, but also just to appreciate the beauty around us. And even when I was living in Toronto, I was in the High Park area. I'd do the same sort of thing. I'd drive slowly through High Park before I went into the office. Again, just that everything around us, it's it's made by people.
Yeah.
But
Well, thank you to MJ for saying, she says no sound. So I was distracted looking at some other stuff there. Otherwise, I would have seen her kind of thing that says no sound. And I probably missed your cue as well. You might have, but anyway, we have two versions of the video, right? Both in color and one without sound. So you can actually see how David is good at sending a message without any sort of audio kind of thing, right? He's gifted. So, so tell us in terms of the when you think about all your different kind of work that you've done over the decades and whatnot, is it mostly in Canada, or have you done some international work? Where do you want to work if you had your way?
Well, these days in Canada, but I guess I've been fortunate enough. I started working with a diamond mining company up in the Northwest Territories, the Acadie Diamond Mine. That's part of the BHP Billiton Group, and so people move around a lot in that area. And so I've been fortunate enough to have an opportunity to do a little bit of work in Peru, 13,000 feet where I could barely breathe, and in Suriname.
Hey, I wonder how the nose flute would work there. Is it more challenging up there?
It is, but the folks there loved it. I gave it to, so they're very much more family oriented. So usually when there's a dinner and a planning session, it's just that people are in the meeting, but they invited their family and kids and stuff like that, which was fabulous. And so the spouses, there were mostly female spouses, and the kids gravitated to the nose flute like crazy and basically embarrassed their parents into doing it. So definitely the elevation is a challenge. I had an opportunity to work in Suriname, which just sits on top of Brazil. And again, in a place where like the nature was incredible. There's some places I've been to that I'd never take my family to, quite frankly. But
I'm glad you came home and safely. And is that what you mean?
Well, you realize how isolated you are. Like in Suriname, it was, we were up at a dam site. Our site had been dammed up and, flooded all kinds of villages to create power for an aluminum factory that was another company owned. And, piranha swimming around in the lakes. Like it was really quite bizarre. And the birds were so loud, you couldn't hear yourself think. And termite nests that were probably 15 or 20 feet high. Like it was incredible.
With the bird being so loud, that's an example of too much of a good thing, right? Normally, you love the bird chirping. We live on an acreage, so I love the bird chirping thing in the morning and whatnot. And but I can imagine if that was multiplied by many folds at one point, it might just be too distracting.
It was very distracting. The same company took me to do some work in Borneo, East Kalimantan, which is quite interesting. And at the time, you'd be going into a hotel. And before as you were coming into the parking lot, they'd have the folks outside with the metal detectors and the mirrors underneath your car to make sure there are no bombs. And you'd be going through metal detectors. Like it was quite disconcerting, quite frankly. And then, of course, 5 times a day, there were the prayers and siren sound and stuff like that. It was like a wonderful exposure to another culture. And then I had an opportunity to work in New Zealand one time for a software company. So I've been very, very fortunate. I've not done a ton. Like I don't spend most of my time on the road, but I've been fortunate to go some places that I never go on my own and thoroughly enjoyed it. Of course, a little bit in Europe as well, but mostly in Canada.
I might have been distracting you with the dog clip here. Tell us what's the name of the dog?
This is Holly. She's such a treat. We got her as a 1-year-old as a rescue.
Huh?
and she's just full of beans. She just loves to run. She's got a bit of an issue now where she's not supposed to get excited labs more than you want to know. They get something called paralangeal something or other, and the larynx doesn't fully open, so it's hard for her to get a full breath. So to have to try to keep her calm. She doesn't want to be calm. She's on antidepressants, dude.
Mm.
You know, she gets antidepressants in the morning and the afternoon. And now, personally, I don't need them, but it's probably a good idea to have some around just in case. But we've got another miniature dachshund that we got as a rescue when she was 4, and she's 8 now. It's just sometimes I'll come home from the office because I'm only about a 10-minute drive. And I'll just sit down on the couch and little Maggie will come up on my lap and I'll just sit there and zone out for about a half an hour. Just, you know, all is right with the world. Who knows what's going on outside, but this little kind of protected area, I have this little dog on my lap.
Mm-hmm.
It's just totally comfortable and totally curled up. And then I go back into the office and I'm totally rejuvenated.
Yeah, yeah, well, nice. We're just going to look at this clip here as well. Tell us about what was the context for this particular one, my friend. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to hit play here, maybe, and we'll see.
Yeah, again, and this is...
So today, it feels like I'm walking through a soundtrack for a
There's
forest
Holly.
scene. The birds are unbelievable. Just all the bird song, all the different kinds of birds. It's quite a wonderful way to start the day. I hope yours goes well as well. Better yet, have an entirely fabulous week.
The whole week, hey? You're pretty generous there, my friend.
Oh yeah, what the heck, or the year, or the decade. But again, and this was just a couple of days ago, and I was just, the birds were like you go out in the morning before the park gets filled up, you know, you rarely see anyone else, and just all kinds of different birds, and you hear the ravens, you know, yakking at each other up the tree. Squirrels would be, you know, making their noise, running around trees in circles, and all kinds of different birds that no idea what they are, but it's just like, this is so cool. So I just, you know, like to share that.
Yeah. Hey, you know, I hope you don't have a business meeting that you are trying to rush to. Do you have a bit of time flexibility, my friend?
Yes, I have to go home and feed the dogs at 6:30 because my wife and daughter are busy getting ready for a flea market at the church.
6:30, you know, that's a few hours away. I think we'll be okay. And that's even 6:30 in BC time. Now, let me say BC, the west coast of Canada.
Yes,
West
coast. 7:30 for
you. So what I want to do is turn the conversation over the idea of, I know that you, let's see here, you've done some competition with, was it, what's that thing where you do the presentation in like so many minutes and it's like so many seconds per slide? Tell us about that experience.
Oh, I'm glad I did. Never do it again. I mean, it's I think that's a Japanese art form where it's like Pichakucha. I probably mispronounced that, Pechakucha. I've been to a couple of them in Vancouver that were quite interesting. And so there was this fellow a couple of friends of mine did it. And it's basically, I think you have 20 slides, 20 seconds, or something like that.
20 seconds? That is pretty aggressive.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it was that. Could be wrong, but the principle is very short.
Mm-hmm.
And once you press go, it's programmed. So you have 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did it on I think the whole thing was on compassion.
Mm.
And I used a lot of examples when my daughter and I went down to Mexico, to Ensenada, to build a home for a homeless family with a bunch of other youth. Mm-hmm. I was by far the oldest person there, and my body aches would have demonstrated that. But just about, you know, caring about someone else and what, you know, some different definitions of compassion. So it's a topic I was interested in. The challenge I had is doing things in 20-second increments. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of discipline involved in that, and I appreciate the discipline. It took an unbelievable amount of time to put it together. Mm-hmm. I know there's some organizations that, you know, do it fairly regularly,
Mhm.
But to have a concept in 20 seconds and to present it meaningfully. And as I said earlier, I don't really like keynote speaking if it's just one way. There's no
Mhm.
time for people to reflect. It's all about the sort of the theater aspect of it. Like really great idea, especially when you have one after another. So you have speaker 20 slides, 20 seconds each. Next speaker 20 slides, 20 seconds each. How much
Mhm.
do you absorb? And it's great to be part of the spectacle.
Mhm.
But like with my life now, I want to be doing things that have impact.
Mhm.
That's what I'm trying to, I work with my clients. What impact do you want? Now, what do we need to do to get to that impact? So uh, it had impact on me for doing it. And I don't want to do it again. It wasn't enjoyable. I don't think it added value to me or to anyone else based on the way that I look at things. But
Mhm.
there's all kinds of them out there. Some really good examples, some beautiful, photographs and things like that. So
Mhm. Cool.
thanks for
Cool.
bringing up that painful memory, Dune. Appreciate that.
Sorry, David. Well, we want to be a balanced show. It can't just be all positivity, David, right?
Okay.
We had too much fun up to this point. I got to throw that in just to balance it out a little bit.
Okay. Let's get down and dirty. So you'll see a lot of the pictures actually have googly eyes on them,
Hmm.
and it's probably not environmentally the best thing to do. But I'd be going through the park like that one there,
Yeah, I saw that.
trying to find things that look like it would be more complete if it had eyes. And I
Hmm.
put them on stone. I put them on rocks. When I've seen kids in the park, I said, "See if you can find the critters in the park." And it's just kind of a fun way to be looking at things differently.
Hmm. Hmm.
like
Hmm.
like that picture with some ice I'd never seen. This is where Mother Nature ripped up this bridge. Think you're in control? No,
Yeah,
nature
yeah,
doesn't want it. It'll take it away. And then the beauty that we see there. So
yeah, yeah. Now I'm going to ask because some of my friends, probably some of your friends as well, are Toastmasters, right? I mean, we have lots and lots of friends in many circles, and one of them is Toastmasters. So I got to ask, have you, or are you, or have you been a Toastmaster? Have you joined that organization somewhere along the line in your journey?
way back when in Toronto, I
Yeah.
went to I've spoken at a couple of Toastmasters clubs. I'm not a Toastmasters member now. I did for a while, and I really enjoyed it. I
Mm.
enjoyed the people. I love the discipline. I actually won a contest in Ontario. It's the first year that they had an impromptu speaking contest. So I won at a chapter level, one at the district level, or regional level, whatever it was. Anyhow, it was kind of an all Ontario thing. And I had no idea what I was doing, why I was doing it, what technique was using. And I remember for the final, I thought I'm sunk. Everyone else is so good. Like they've been doing this for years. They're so practiced. It's my dogs waiting for me to come upstairs to feed them. I remember using some of the lines from a Mary Poppins song, that in every task that must be done, there is an element of fun. Just find the fun and snap the job's a game. And somehow I only had a minute to talk, and somehow having those 35 or 40 seconds, repeating that helped a lot. But it's
Mm.
I love the concept of improv and impromptu speaking, and got to do that in Toastmasters. I think it's a great organization. I think I've seen ones that are business oriented, others where people are English is not their primary language, and they're trying to develop those skills. So, as a discipline and having a formula, I think it's great,
Mhm.
fabulous organization. Personally, I'm not a member now, though.
Yeah, yeah. My story of how I joined Toastmasters is they went to a meeting and they were doing a demo of that, and they say, "Well, we want to launch a club, and we want to find our, the charter members." And so, yeah, I said I'll join, and and they voted me in as president. So I was all of a sudden here, founding member, founding president of a charter club that I have never been in Toastmasters prior to that. It was like just right in there, So it was great, and like you, I believe it's a great organization. But as you mentioned earlier, we all make choices, and along the way, I've made the choice to focus my time in many other places that sort of require the time, and so time is the only factor. Did you know that my first song I have ever written was actually about Toastmasters?
No, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
wrote a song called Toastmasters of District 42. If you Google hard enough on the web, you'll find it. And then, maybe try to delete it if you can. But anyway, my first song that I've ever written was actually, so I wrote that song, Toastmasters of District 42, and I actually performed it in front of 200 Toastmasters for the 25th anniversary. 200 Toastmasters and guests, and that was our very first Toastmaster song I've ever written. And so I did a keynote presentation, and then I did 3 songs that I just wrote a week or so before that. Toastmasters of District 42.
Like, to me, it's kind of like it's a great community, local community, and then there's people that compete internationally, and I think it's probably part of it is about the adrenaline of speaking and the excellence and things like that. But being with other people that you have something in common with is so important. And Toastmasters operates on literally around the world, and I think it's a fabulous organization.
Yeah. The first verse goes, "We gather round several times a month." Does that ring a bell?
It does. Well, the one that I went to, it was every week.
Exactly. Every week just didn't sound right. So several
right.
times a month, David. Let's do the math here. Several times a month could be weekly.
Make sure it rhymes.
That's right. I was constrained by the lyrical constructs. So, David, tell us about was there a story or sentiment or something that you want to share with our viewers that I just sort of been too interruptive and sort of prevented you from sharing with our folks?
Well, one of the things that I think about often is organizations, at least in the Western Hemisphere, are driven to grow.
Mm.
And it's like the growth imperative. If you're not growing, then you're no good, or things like that. Keep the shareholders happy. And it occurred to me that, and this, I'll go back a bit. A number of years ago, I was emceeing a health, work, and wellness conference. I heard a fellow from, I believe from Nova Scotia, who was talking about a genuine progress index.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's other versions of this out there. And he was saying, in Nova Scotia, like if you look at strictly GDP, the largest employer is the prison system at the time. So, if you have more people in prison, more revenue going into that increases the GDP. Is that a sign of progress? It said things like, a tree only counts when it's cut down. That there's no way to account for the value of nannies at stay-at-home mom or dads or things like that. And this whole thing about production orientation and measuring growth. And it occurred to me that most of our economy is built on the shuns, the growth in our economy. So, consumption. But what comes before consumption? Production. What comes before production? Extraction. There's all these kinds of things that there's very few things that we measure that don't have some kind of requirement for extraction, production, consumption. Yes, there's recycling and things like that. And there's something about that just, much as all as I'd like to have, a healthy income and stuff like that, it's, at what cost do we do that? And I've said, and I have a number of friends that are marketing people. I said, maybe one of the things where we could shift, have a pivot in the economy, is if we get rid of all marketing people. Because primarily marketing people, their job is to persuade you that you want or need something that someone else is going to manufacture, that's going to have to be extracted, and all those kinds of things. I was at a marketing conference one time up in Squamish, and it was mostly on internet marketing. And I'd say with one exception, everyone was talking about how they use social media to get people to buy stuff that they probably didn't need, in most cases did not need, but might want. There was someone from World Vision there or something like that, and their marketing was to get people to support a good cause. That was like the one that stepped aside. It's not about making money for us directly. It's about making the world a better place. And it's all about, you have to buy something. You have to consume something. What do we do to turn economy around? The stimulus packages. We give money to people so they can buy stuff, right? And that's a short-term solution, but what's the impact that it has? Like, I'm not an environmentalist or anything like that, but there's something that just feels like it's a one-way train, and it's consuming things that at some point are going to be gone. Well, so that's sort of one of the memes for COVID-19 was empty shelves.
Mm.
So, I don't know a lot that I can do about that other than to be careful about what I buy and to ask myself, do I need, like, I love technology.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. And, there's no point in feeling guilty about all the stupid things I've bought in the past. But certainly going ahead, I want to be more mindful of that. My daughter, who's 20, is fabulous about that. Like, why buy something new if you can buy something used or something else like that? And I think we need that kind of shift. But what gets in the way of making that shift is that we're going to have to be maybe inconvenienced and a little bit less comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we get people to overcome that? How do we take small steps to deal with a little bit of discomfort that increases their ability to take bigger levels of discomfort? It's not about being uncomfortable. It's about being more purposeful in the way that we live our lives. So I know I'm rambling, but I think about that a lot. Like, what kind of world am I leaving behind for my daughter and her kids and like everyone else? And just the whole thing about being so focused on growth. I think there's a toxic element to that. I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David. As we round the corner on wrapping this up, I'm going to ask you to play the same game that I asked some of our other guests play. You want to play a game?
I guess I can't just say it depends, because we're going to end up doing it anyhow. So, okay.
That's right.
Go for it.
I would like you to think about 3 words. 3 words can be completely independent word or could be related to one another. 3 words that you want our viewers to think about and keep top of mind as they think about the conversation here with David Gouthro. Well, what would be those 3 words that you would want to impart our viewers with?
Well, I think some of them might have used directly, others less directly. So one of them is be mindful, be more mindful.
Mindful.
Be more playful. And choose wisely.
See, I knew you were a maverick. I asked for 3 words, and I think I counted 4.
Well, choose wisely is actually hyphenated.
Hyphenated. Okay, hyphenated is good. Choose wisely is hyphenated. So let me see if I remember it. Mindfulness, or be mindful, right? Mindfulness. Playfulness. And choose wisely. So
yeah, you run it together. It's kind of legato as opposed to staccato when you use those 2 words together.
Legato, our musician friends, our guitarist is going to love you. Legato is actually, music speak, right? Legato.
I played trombone for many years, and I play nose flute, and I have ocarinas around here, and I've got drums. I've got a ukulele sitting there, so I'm familiar with musical terms. Yeah.
There you go. Next year, you could probably throw a staccato at me or something like that. You got to stop before we go.
That'd be abrupt.
MJ chimed in again and said, thank you both. I really enjoy this. Love the mindfulness and playfulness. So David, thank you, my friend. And I'm going to do one more thing. I know I said, we play the game. One more thing. And that is, you're going to take us out, my friend. You're going to take us out. You do whatever you want to do. You can incorporate any show business, any soapbox, any kind of thing at all. I will not say a thing. You are going to take us out.
Okay. So, Dune, I spent an incredible amount of time today getting ready for this. I'm now going to undo it. You can watch me as I do this. I taped up the blanket on my window rather than have this as background. I've got staples. I've got masking tape. It's going to take forever to get it undone. But it's about being prepared. And I thank you so much for this opportunity.
It's been great. Oops, I'm not supposed to say anything. No. Okay, you have to keep on saying, and I'm going to be quiet because I did say you're going to take us out. So do that again, and I will be quiet.
From Mickey Mouse.
Oh, before I forget, when we're done, stay in the green room, but you're going to take us out and then stay in the green room.